Yes, Elena whispered, then louder, her voice carrying across the stunned terrace. Yes, Alexander. Yes, the ring slid onto her finger as if it had been made for her, which, Elena realized with wonder, it had been. Alexander rose and pulled her into his arms, kissing her deeply as camera flashes exploded around them like tiny supernovas. When they finally broke apart, the terrace had erupted into chaos. Victoria was screaming at Marcus, accusing him of ruining everything with his indiscretion. Marcus was shouting back that she had been the one to suggest the affair in the first place, that she had never cared about Alexander beyond his net worth. Board members clustered in concerned groups, their phones pressed to their ears as they calculated the financial implications of the evening's revelations. But Elena only had eyes for Alexander, who was looking at her as if she were the most precious thing in the world. "Are you sure?" she asked quietly, aware that their entire future hung in the balance. "You're risking everything, your company, your reputation, your place in this world." Alexander's hand cupped her cheek tenderly. "Elena, 6 months ago I was dying in a hospital bed, convinced that my life was measured only by quarterly reports and stock prices. You showed me that real wealth isn't counted in dollars. It's counted in moments like this, in the courage to choose love over fear, in building something that matters beyond boardrooms and bottom lines." Over his shoulder, Elena could see Dr. Morrison approaching with a warm smile and a glass of champagne. Behind him, several of the nursing staff from the hospital had arrived, colleagues who had become friends during Alexander's recovery, people who had seen their love story unfold in quiet moments between medical procedures and physical therapy sessions. Besides, Alexander continued, his eyes twinkling with mischief, "I've been restructuring company assets for weeks. Blackwood Industries will survive without the Sterling merger. It might be leaner, but it'll be built on integrity instead of manipulation. And if I've learned anything from my recovery, it's that the strongest foundations are built on truth." As if to underscore his point, Victoria's voice carried sharply across the terrace. "You think you've won something, little nurse? He'll tire of you within a year. Men like Alexander always do." Elena started to respond, but Alexander stepped protectively in front of her. "Victoria, I suggest you focus on salvaging your own reputation rather than attacking the woman I love. The media will be very interested in hearing about your affair with Marcus, especially given how you manipulated both of us." Victoria's face went ashen as she realized her position. Without the merger, without Alexander's protection, she was vulnerable to scandal in a world that forgave men their indiscretions, but destroyed women for the same behavior. Marcus, meanwhile, had disappeared entirely, no doubt calculating his own damage control strategy. Dr. Morrison reached them with his champagne and a paternal smile. "Well, this certainly isn't how I expected the evening to go, but I can't say I'm surprised, Elena. My dear, you've worked miracles with this stubborn patient of mine." "She's worked miracles with more than my medical recovery," Alexander said, his arm tightening around Elena's waist. "She's taught me what it means to truly live." As the evening progressed, Elena watched the crowd thin out as curious socialites and disappointed business partners made their exits, but others remained. Dr. Morrison, several nurses from the hospital, a few of Alexander's more loyal board members, who seemed intrigued rather than horrified by the evening's developments. "You know," Alexander murmured in her ear as they swayed together on the now quiet terrace, "I originally planned to propose somewhere private, maybe during one of our walks through the hospital garden, or in your apartment with Chinese takeout and that terrible reality show you love." Elena laughed, the sound bright in the evening air. This was perfect, a little dramatic, maybe, but perfect. Dramatic is one word for it. Alexander chuckled. "Tomorrow morning, every financial newspaper in the country is going to be analyzing the impact of my romantic impulsiveness on the market. My publicist has probably already drafted her resignation letter." "Any regrets?" Elena asked, studying his face in the moonlight. Alexander was quiet for a moment, considering. "Only one," he said finally. "I regret that it took me so long to find the courage to choose love over duty. I wasted months agonizing over an impossible choice that was never really impossible at all." Elena rose on her tiptoes and kissed him softly. We found each other exactly when we were supposed to. Your accident, my being assigned to your care, even Victoria's betrayal, it all led us here. Do you really believe that?" Alexander asked. "That some force in the universe was orchestrating our love story?" Elena looked around at the scene that had played out on the terrace, the dramatic confrontations, the public declarations, the messy reality of choosing love in a world that often prioritized everything else. It hadn't been neat or easy or particularly dignified, but it had been real. "I believe that love finds a way," she said simply. "Even when it seems impossible, even when the odds are stacked against it, even when choosing it means losing everything else you thought you needed." Alexander spun her slowly, her dress flaring out around her legs as the last of the evening's guests watched with amused appreciation when he pulled her back into his arms. His expression was serious. "Elena Vasquez," he said formally, "you saved my life, claimed my heart, and changed my entire world. Tomorrow, we start building our future together. No corporate strategies, no family expectations, no one's approval but our own. Are you ready for that adventure?" Elena looked into his eyes and saw their future stretching ahead of them, challenging, uncertain, but filled with the kind of love that made every risk worthwhile. "I've been ready since the moment I walked into your hospital room," she said. "Let's build something beautiful together." As they kissed under the stars, neither of them noticed the photographer from the society pages capturing the moment that would grace the front page of every major newspaper the next morning. A billionaire and his nurse, dancing alone on a marble terrace, surrounded by the wreckage of old expectations and the promise of new beginnings. What do you think? In a world where social status and financial security often dictate romantic choices, was Alexander's decision to risk his empire for love admirable or reckless? Could a relationship that began under such intense circumstances and public scrutiny truly survive the challenges that lay ahead for Elena and Alexander? The engagement party arrived like a storm Elena couldn't escape. Alexander had insisted she attend as his guest, though Victoria's icy glares across the ballroom made it clear that her presence was anything but welcome. The Sterling family's palatial estate was filled with Manhattan's elite, all gathered to witness what they believed would be the union of two powerful dynasties. Elena stood on the marble terrace, overlooking the formal gardens, her simple black dress modest among the sea of designer gowns, when Marcus Reed approached with 2 champagne glasses and a predatory smile. "You clean up nicely, nurse," he said, offering her a glass she didn't take. "Though I have to admit, I'm surprised to see you here. Victoria was quite certain you'd understand your place by now." "My place?" Elena's voice was steady despite the anger burning in her chest. Marcus stepped closer, his cologne overwhelming in the night air. "Come now, let's not play games. You're beautiful, I'll give you that. And clearly Alexander has developed an attachment. But surely you realize this is temporary madness. Men like Alexander don't marry women like you. They enjoy them for a while, then move on to appropriate matches." Elena's hand tightened around her clutch purse, where Alexander's ring rested in its small velvet box. He had wanted to announce their engagement tonight, to let the world know he was choosing love over convenience. But Elena had asked for time to process everything. "You don't know him at all," she said quietly. "I've known him since Harvard." Marcus laughed, the sound harsh in the evening air. "I know exactly how his mind works right now. He's feeling rebellious, playing the romantic hero. But when the dust settles and he sees his company's stock price, when he counts the cost of his noble gesture, he'll come to his senses." Through the French doors, Elena could see Alexander moving through the crowd with the easy confidence of a man born to lead. He was speaking with investors, board members, media representatives, all the people whose opinions could make or break his business empire. Every few minutes, his eyes would find her through the glass, and his smile would soften with the love she'd never expected to find. "He's going to expose your affair with Victoria tonight," Elena said, watching Marcus's face carefully. For the first time, the older man's composure cracked. "He can't prove anything. He doesn't need to. He's going to announce that the engagement is off, that the merger won't happen. What do you think Victoria will do then? Will she stand by you when her family's fortune is at stake, or will she find a way to save herself?" Marcus's face went pale in the silver moonlight. "You little bitch, you destroyed everything." "No," Elena said firmly, "you destroyed everything. The moment you betrayed his trust." Before Marcus could respond, the sound of a spoon against crystal rang out from the ballroom. Alexander was calling for attention, ready to make his announcement. Elena watched through the glass as Victoria moved to stand beside him, her smile perfect for the cameras. Completely unaware that her world was about to crumble, Alexander's voice carried clearly as he began to speak. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us tonight. I know you're all expecting me to announce my engagement to the lovely Victoria Sterling." The crowd murmured appreciatively, champagne glasses raised in anticipation. Elena's heart hammered as she watched the scene unfold. But sometimes, Alexander continued, his eyes finding Elena's through the glass, life has other plans. Sometimes when you think you know exactly where your path is leading, you discover that love has been quietly rewriting your destination. Victoria's smile began to falter as confused whispers rippled through the crowd. "I cannot, in good conscience, enter into a marriage built on business strategy rather than genuine affection. Victoria Sterling is a remarkable woman who deserves someone who can love her completely. I am not that man." The ballroom erupted in shocked murmurs and the rapid clicking of camera phones. Elena watched as Victoria's mask of composure finally slipped, revealing the cold fury beneath. Alexander raised his hand for silence. "Furthermore, I've recently discovered that my business partner, Marcus Reed, and Miss Sterling have been conducting an affair behind my back while negotiating this very merger." The Sterling-Blackwood alliance was built on deception from the very beginning. The crowd gasped as Victoria's face went white with rage and Marcus pushed through the French doors, his face flushed with desperation and anger. "Alexander, you're making a mistake," Marcus called out, drawing the attention of everyone on the terrace. "You're destroying everything we've built together." Over some nurse who he never finished the sentence, Alexander moved faster than Elena had seen since before his accident, crossing the terrace in 3 swift strides and landing a punch that sent Marcus reeling backward into a marble planter. "Her name is Elena Vasquez," Alexander said, his voice carrying clearly in the sudden silence. "And she's worth more than 10 of you." Elena's vision blurred with tears as Alexander turned to face the crowd gathered both inside and on the terrace. In that moment, she saw him not as the powerful CEO or the wounded patient she'd cared for, but as the man who had chosen her over everything else his world valued. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, his voice strong and clear, "I'd like you to meet the woman I intend to marry." He walked to Elena, took her hand, and pulled her gently into the spotlight. The crowd stared in stunned silence as he dropped to one knee for the second time in 2 days. This time before an audience of hundreds. "Elena Vasquez," he said, his voice carrying across the terrace, "you saved my life in more ways than I can count. Will you do me the honor of becoming my wife?" Through her tears, Elena saw Victoria storming toward them, her face twisted with fury. She saw Marcus struggling to his feet, blood trickling from his nose. She saw the crowd of wealthy strangers judging her, measuring her, finding her wanting. But most of all, she saw Alexander, kneeling before her with his heart in his eyes, offering her everything he had to give. 2 days before the engagement party, Elena found herself standing outside Alexander's penthouse office, her resignation letter clutched in her sweating palm. She had spent sleepless nights wrestling with her conscience, torn between protecting him from devastating betrayal and freeing him from a life built on lies. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime, revealing the familiar figure of Dr. Morrison, Alexander's longtime physician and friend. "Elena," he greeted her with surprise, "I didn't expect to see you here. Shouldn't you be preparing for the transition of Alexander's care?" She swallowed hard. "Actually, I need to speak with him. It's urgent." Dr. Morrison's weathered face creased with concern. "Is this about his recovery? Because medically, he's exceeded all expectations." The man's determination to walk again was nothing short of miraculous, though I suspect his motivation had as much to do with a certain dedicated nurse as it did with physical therapy. Heat flooded Elena's cheeks. "Dr. Morrison, my dear, I've been practicing medicine for 40 years. I've seen how love can be the most powerful healing force in the world. What's developed between you and Alexander?" It's given him something to fight for beyond corporate obligations. The kindness in his voice nearly broke her resolve. That's exactly why I have to do this. Before Dr. Morrison could respond, Alexander's office door opened, revealing the man, himself in an impeccably tailored charcoal suit, looking every inch the powerful CEO he was born to be. But when his eyes found Elena, his entire demeanor softened. Elena. Her name was a caress on his lips. I was hoping you'd come. I have something important to ask you. Dr. Morrison tactfully excused himself, leaving them alone in the opulent hallway lined with priceless artwork and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Alexander moved toward her with the confident stride of a man who had reclaimed his strength. Though she could see the slight tension in his shoulders that spoke of ongoing discomfort, he refused to acknowledge. Walk with me, he said, offering his arm. They entered his office, a space that commanded respect with its mahogany furnishings and panoramic view of the financial district. But Elena's attention was caught by something unexpected. Her favorite flowers, white peonies, arranged in crystal vases throughout the room. You remembered, she whispered, touching one delicate petal. I remember everything about you, Alexander said softly. The way you hum when you think no one's listening. How you always wear that small gold cross your grandmother gave you. The fact that you've never asked for anything, not once, in all the months you've cared for me. He moved to his desk and retrieved a small velvet box that made Elena's heart stop. Alexander, no, hear me out, he said, his voice steady despite the emotion burning in his eyes. Tomorrow night, I'm supposed to announce my engagement to Victoria Sterling, but I can't do it, Elena. I can't pledge my life to one woman when my heart belongs entirely to another. The box remained closed in his palm, but its implications hung heavy in the air between them. Elena felt her world tilting on its axis. The merger will have to find another way to succeed, or it won't. I've spent the last 2 days restructuring deals, liquidating assets, calling in favors from every corner of the business world. Yes, it'll be harder without the Sterling alliance. But it's not impossible, Elena. I'd rather fight for my company with integrity than build an empire on lies. Tears stung her eyes. You don't understand. There are things you don't know about Victoria, about Marcus. Then tell me, he said simply, setting the box aside and taking her hands in his. Whatever it is, we'll face it together. The moment of truth had arrived, sharp and terrible in its finality. Elena looked into his eyes that had learned to trust her completely and felt the weight of her love for him pressing against the burden of her secret. I saw them, she whispered. Victoria and Marcus, 3 days ago, in your recovery suite. They were together. Alexander went very still, his face becoming a mask of controlled fury. Together how? Kissing, planning, talking about the merger like it was just business, like your feelings didn't matter at all. Alexander, she doesn't love you. She never did, and Marcus has been my partner for 8 years, Alexander finished, his voice deadly quiet. My oldest friend, the man I trusted to help me build everything. Elena watched as the betrayal hit him in waves, first the sharp intake of breath, then the gradual straightening of his shoulders as the businessman in him began calculating the implications. There's more, she forced herself to continue. Victoria threatened me, said that telling you would destroy your recovery, would ruin everything you'd worked for. She wanted me to stay silent. Alexander released her hands and moved to the window, staring out at the city sprawling below them. When he finally spoke, his voice carried a mixture of pain and determination that broke her heart. All this time, I've been agonizing over choosing between duty and love, never realizing that my duty was built on quicksand. He turned back to her, his expression fierce. Elena, you saved more than my life. You saved me from making the biggest mistake I could ever make. He picked up the velvet box again, and this time, he opened it. Inside lay a ring that took Elena's breath away, not the massive diamond she might have expected, but a delicate vintage piece with her birthstones surrounded by tiny diamonds, arranged like flower petals. I had it made special, he said, moving toward her, because I don't want to give you something that screams about money or status. I want to give you something that speaks of how perfectly you fit into my life, how you've become the most precious thing in my world. Elena's heart soared and shattered simultaneously. "Alexander, marry me," he said, dropping to one knee despite his still healing injuries. "Not because it makes business sense, not because it's expected, but because I love you more than I ever thought it was possible to love another person. Marry me, and let's build something real together." 3 hours later, Elena knocked softly on Alexander's private suite door, her hands trembling as she carried his evening medications. The confrontation with Victoria and Marcus replayed in her mind. Like a broken record, each memory more painful than the last. "Come in," Alexander's voice called, warm with the affection that had grown between them over months of shared struggles and quiet victories. She found him by the window, his dark hair still damp from the shower, wearing a simple white shirt that emphasized the breadth of his shoulders. The sight of him strong despite his injuries, beautiful in his vulnerability, made her heart skip. "You're late," he said, turning to face her with a smile that could have powered the city. "I was beginning to worry you decided to abandon your most demanding patient." Elena forced a smile, setting the medication tray on his bedside table. "Never. You're stuck with me until Dr. Morrison clears you for discharge. And after that?" Alexander's question was soft, loaded with meaning that made the air between them electric. She looked up to find him watching her with an intensity that stole her breath. Over the past month, the boundaries between patient and caregiver had blurred into something neither of them had dared to name. Stolen glances during therapy sessions, conversations that stretched long into the night, the way his hand lingered when she helped him with his exercises. It had all been building to this moment. "Alexander," she whispered, but he was already moving toward her, his recovery remarkable enough that he barely needed the walking aid. "Say my name again," he murmured, stopping just inches from her, close enough that she could smell his cologne, could see the flecks of gold in his brown eyes. "Alexander." His name fell from her lips like a prayer, and something in his expression shifted, becoming raw and desperate. "I've been going crazy," he confessed, his hand rising to cup her cheek. "Every day, watching you care for me, seeing your smile, listening to your voice, Elena. I know this is impossible. I know we're from different worlds, but I can't stop thinking about you." Her resolve crumbled like sand. "I think about you too, all the time." His thumb traced her lower lip, sending fire through her veins. "Tell me to stop. Tell me this is wrong, and I'll never speak of it again." Instead, she rose on her tiptoes and kissed him. The kiss was everything, desperate, tender, full of months of suppressed longing. Alexander's arms came around her waist, pulling her against him as if she were his lifeline. Elena melted into his embrace, her hands fisting in his shirt, her heart soaring and breaking simultaneously. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Alexander rested his forehead against hers. "I'm supposed to get engaged next week," he whispered, his voice heavy with anguish. The words were like ice water on her soul. "I know. The merger, the company. Thousands of jobs depend on this alliance with the Sterling family. But Elena, I don't know how I'm supposed to pledge my life to Victoria when every fiber of my being belongs to you." Elena closed her eyes, Victoria's threats echoing in her mind. She could tell him the truth about Marcus, about the betrayal, about the hollow foundation his sacrifice was built upon. But she could also see the weight he already carried, the impossible choice between love and duty that was tearing him apart. "Maybe," she said carefully, "we should focus on your recovery first. The rest, we'll figure it out." Alexander's hands tightened on her waist. "Is there a we to figure out? Elena, I need to know if what I'm feeling is real. If you could ever see a future where—" She silenced him with another kiss, this one fierce with promise and heartbreak. "Yes," she breathed against his lips. "Yes, there's a we. But Alexander, your responsibilities, damn my responsibilities," he growled, his control fraying. "I've spent my entire life doing what was expected, what was practical, what was best for everyone but myself. For once, I want to choose love over duty. I want to choose you." In that moment, wrapped in his arms with rain pattering against the windows, Elena almost believed they could overcome anything, almost believed that love could conquer the vast divide between their worlds, that truth could triumph over deception, that somehow they could build a future together. But Victoria's words haunted her. One word from you could shatter that illusion and destroy everything he's worked to build. The weight of her secret pressed down on her chest like a stone, and she knew that whatever choice she made would change everything forever. Elena Vasquez froze in the doorway of the private recovery suite, her clipboard clattering to the marble floor as she witnessed Alexander Blackwood's fiancée, Victoria Sterling, locked in a passionate embrace with his business partner, Marcus Reed. The sound echoed through the opulent room like a gunshot, and Victoria's perfectly manicured fingers pushed Marcus away as her cold blue eyes met Elena's shocked gaze. Well, Victoria purred, smoothing her designer dress with practiced composure. The little nurse has quite the timing. Elena's heart hammered against her ribs as she bent to retrieve her clipboard, her mind racing. For 3 months, she had been Alexander's primary caregiver following the devastating car accident that had shattered his legs and nearly claimed his life. In those quiet hours of rehabilitation, something had bloomed between them, something pure and unexpected that made her forget the vast chasm between their worlds. Marcus adjusted his tie, his face flushed with embarrassment and defiance. "This doesn't concern you, nurse. I suggest you forget what you think you saw." But Victoria stepped forward, her smile sharp as a blade. "Actually, this is perfect, you see. Dear Elena, Alexander needs to understand that some relationships are built on more than romantic fairy tales. They're built on power, on necessity, on the kind of strategic thinking that keeps empires alive." Elena found her voice, though it trembled with emotion. "He's recovering from injuries that nearly killed him. How can I what? Be practical." Victoria's laugh was crystalline and cruel. "Alexander's company is bleeding money while he plays the wounded hero. The merger with Marcus's firm is the only thing keeping Blackwood Industries afloat. Our engagement isn't just about love, it never was. It's about survival." Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, rain lashed against the glass, mirroring the storm building in Elena's chest. She had seen Alexander struggle not just with his physical therapy, but with the weight of expectations that seemed to crush him even as his bones healed. During their sessions, when it was just the two of them, she had glimpsed the man beneath, the corporate armor, vulnerable, funny, desperately lonely despite his wealth. "Does he know?" Elena whispered. Victoria's smile widened. "About Marcus and me? Of course not. And he won't, will he? Because you understand what's at stake here. Alexander's recovery depends on stability, on believing that his future is secure. One word from you could shatter that illusion and destroy everything he's worked to build." Marcus moved to stand beside Victoria, his hand possessively gripping her waist. "The engagement party is next week. Hundreds of investors, board members, media representatives. The announcement of our merger will happen simultaneously. It's already set in motion." Elena felt the walls of the luxurious room closing in around her. She thought of Alexander's laugh when she'd helped him take his first steps after the accident, the way his eyes softened when she read to him during his darkest moments of pain, the electricity that sparked between them whenever their hands accidentally touched during his physical therapy sessions. "You're asking me to lie to him," she said, her voice barely audible above the rain. "We're asking you to be smart," Victoria replied coolly. "Alexander will have his empire. I'll have my position, and you, well, you'll have the satisfaction of knowing you helped save the life of one of the most powerful men in the country. Isn't that enough for a nurse from the wrong side of town?" The dismissal in Victoria's tone ignited something fierce in Elena's chest. She straightened her shoulders, meeting the heiress's gaze with newfound determination. "You don't know him at all, do you? You don't know that he stays awake at night worrying about every employee who might lose their job, or that he's been secretly funding the children's wing of this hospital for years, or that he what?" Victoria's eyes narrowed dangerously. "That he's developed feelings for his nurse?" How deliciously cliché. Elena's cheeks burned, but she held her ground. The truth hung in the air between them like a challenge, and she realized that her next words would set everything in motion, either toward salvation or destruction.